Thanks so much for joining us here on Wave Now. I'm Myra Ansari.
And I'm Alina Noakes.
We are just days away from one of the biggest trials in our area.
Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson's trial is expected to start on Tuesday. They're facing charges in the disappearance of Bardstown mother Crystal Rogers.
Alina and I are teaming up today, giving you an overview of this case that has haunted our community for 10 years. Alina jumped right into this case. She brought us extensive coverage of Steve Lawson's trial, and she's going to have more on that in just a minute. Alina, I remember taking that phone call in our newsroom on that July 2015 weekend when Crystal's family had that gut feeling that something was wrong with Crystal. They were desperately reaching out to the media, trying to put the word out that Crystal was missing, and they knew something wasn't right.
Myra, a lot has happened in the 10 years since Crystal Rogers disappeared. This case takes the wildest twists and turns. It's gotten so much national attention, so much local attention, countless searches, pleas from family members, a father shot and killed, evidence uncovered, arrests made, one trial down, and now we're on to the second that's about to get started. The biggest mystery still remains what happened to Crystal and where's her body.
And before we jump into that, I took some time on this story and how we got here. It all seemed odd from the beginning.
We're just trying to find her.
July 3rd, 2015 was the last day 35-year-old Crystal Rogers, a mother of 5, was seen alive by her boyfriend, Brooks Houck. 2 days later, she's reported missing by her parents. That same day, July 5th, Rogers' car is found along the Bluegrass Parkway with her things still inside.
Her purse was in there. Her cell phone was in there. Her keys was in the ignition. She don't ever leave her cell phone, ever. She would have not got out of that car and left her cell phone in that car.
People looked for clues. Police asked for help.
If Crystal can hear our voice, we love you. We want to know where you're at. Contact us. Let us know that you're okay.
Call it a parent's intuition. Sherry and Tommy Ballard knew whatever happened to their daughter was not good.
Just trying to hold it together.
Crystal's family was very vocal about their suspicion of her then boyfriend, Brooks Houck, having some sort of involvement in her disappearance.
I specifically told him that day, I think you did something to my daughter. I made that very clear.
The signs went up. The searches continued on land, by foot, four-wheelers, canines, and horses, and in water. And no shortage of prayers. July 8th, Brooks Houck was brought in by the Nelson County Sheriff's Office for questioning. Nick Houck, Brooks' brother and a Bardstown police officer, called mid-interview and told him not to speak with police.
If you're telling me to leave, I'll get up and leave.
July 9th, Houck spoke with Nancy Grace.
I'm 100% completely innocent in this.
That same month, Brooks Houck fails a polygraph test. In October, a big development from the Nelson County Sheriff.
I would label Brooks Houck a suspect, yes.
But he wasn't arrested, at least not yet. Crystal was presumed dead. Houck's brother, Nick, was fired from the Bardstown Police Department for interfering with the criminal investigation into the case.
That's just not how we do it as police officers.
In 2016, Houck's grandmother, Anna Whiteside's home is searched, along with the farm of Rosemary Houck, Brooke Houck's mother. There was a custody battle. Tommy and Sherry Ballard say that Brooks Houck stripped them of their privileges to see their grandson Eli after Crystal went missing. Then a turn of events that shocked everyone 16 months after Crystal disappeared.
We come out every day hoping we'll find something. We need closure.
In November of 2016, Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, who had been investigating his daughter's disappearance, was shot and killed while hunting with his grandson on family property. Tommy's father, Till, spoke to us.
They were two good human beings, and they didn't deserve what they got. It's just hard to put it behind us. We'll never... We'll never put it behind us. Tommy will always be there, and Chris. He wanted to find his daughter. That's all he wanted. And evidently he was getting too close to finding her. And somebody, it wasn't no deer hunter. They had to get rid of Tommy because he was finding out too much.
August 2018, the case captured national attention from NBC's Oxygen Network to the Today Show and Dr. Phil and others.
Did her boyfriend ever join in the search for her? He never lifted a finger.
I believe someone wanted my husband out of the way.
August 2020, the FBI steps in and takes over the investigation. Over the year, there were searches at Brooks Houck's home, their family farm, Crystal's storage unit, including one in 2021 in the Woodlawn Springs subdivision where Brooks Houck's construction company built several houses shortly after Rogers disappeared.
A lot of police presence in the backyards, cutting grass, using shovels, using chainsaws.
After a multi-day search, federal agents find an item of interest under a driveway.
You don't have any closure in her particular case. And the fact that they're still investigating all this is incredibly encouraging.
In October of 2022, the FBI was back at Houck's 245-acre family farm. The FBI spent days combing through it and did confiscate an item there too. Then in January 2023, a special prosecutor is appointed to Crystal's case and to other high-profile Nelson County death investigations, including Rogers' father. A big development months later in August, 32-year-old Joseph Lawson is arrested on 2 charges: conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. Then the arrest that many waited for more than 8 years.
This is a giant step in the answer about what happened to Crystal Rogers.
September 27th, 2023, the FBI arrests Brooks Houck.
Where's Crystal Rogers?
He is charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence.
I'm excited that now the whole world, especially Nelson County, knows that possibly, hopefully, justice has been and will be served.
In October, Houck is arraigned, and during the proceedings, the prosecution revealed they believe they are in possession of the firearm used to kill Tommy Ballard. And in December, a third man, Steve Lawson, is arrested and charged in the case. Steve Lawson is Joseph Lawson's father.
If I could get close to him, but it's the law hold me back. One thing I can say. Because the son of a bitch don't need to be on this earth if he had anything to do with Crystal, and I know he did.
Headed into trial, we have items of interest from the FBI, a dead father, a missing daughter, and prosecutors say these 3 people know what happened to them. All 3 have pleaded not guilty. All right, well, first up was Steve Lawson's trial, and that took place at the end of May. No cameras were allowed in the courtroom for Steve Lawson's trial, and that's going to also be the case for the upcoming trial of Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson. We're going to be relying on our team in the courtroom. That's Alina taking notes, and a sketch artist as well. Alina, let's talk about Steve Lawson's trial. You were there for that, and it went by relatively quickly.
Oh, so quickly, unexpectedly for everyone involved, including the judge. They expected this to go several days. It went 4 with the jury seated on the very first day, and obviously ending on that Friday by the afternoon, early afternoon, with a conviction for Steve Lawson, guilty on conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence. A jury recommended 17 years concurrent for him, meaning that would be a total of 17 years on both charges. Obviously, a judge still has to accept that and officially sentence him, which is expected to happen in the next couple of months.
So what did prosecutors say was his involvement in this case?
Well, they kind of narrowed this for Steve Lawson specifically. Obviously, he's made grand jury testimony prior that they kind of really questioned him on during this trial, namely his role in the movement of Crystal's car. He denies having actually helped to move it. He only says that he picked up his son, Joseph, on the side of the Bluegrass Parkway. Obviously, that's going to be an allegation Joseph has to answer to in his trial, his actual actions in moving the car. The prosecution, though, says he had a knowledge that this was some kind of plan to get rid of Crystal Rogers, and in helping Joseph move that car, participated in that plan.
I think what surprised a lot of people is that Stephen Lawson testified himself. That did surprise a lot of folks. There were also a number of other people that did take the stand as well.
Yes, I mean, Steve Lawson's testimony was absolutely the most jaw-dropping moment for people, because that doesn't typically happen in murder trials.
Mm-hmm.
You've really got to weigh out the risk versus the benefit of having your suspect, or in this case, the defense trying to put up their case. Can you put that person on the stand, and are they going to be credible to a jury? You're having to answer questions, not only the defense trying to humanize him as a suspect in this case, but also the prosecution trying to make him out to be to the jury exactly the suspect they say that he is. So it's a very interesting thing you see happen in the courtroom when you have a suspect who actually takes the stand. Obviously, we believe, and our legal analyst believes, that considering the charges that he was convicted on and the years they recommended for him, that they clearly did not find him to be a credible witness. So that leaves us where we're at today with who are they going to call up in Joseph and Brooks Houck's trial. We expect some of the same characters, some of the same witnesses, because some of the things they talked about, obviously, during trial, people who were told things around the same time that Crystal disappeared, probably are going to be asked the same questions during the next trial. So we're yet to see who they're going to call up exactly. Steve Lawson, it's a possibility if they have some kind of deal made with him.
That was my next question.
Yeah, it's unlikely though.
Okay. All right. So as Alina mentioned, Stephen Lawson was found guilty of conspiracy to murder and tampering with physical evidence. His son, Joseph Lawson, was actually the first arrest connected to Crystal's disappearance, and he is charged with conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. But the person who prosecutors have said holds the answers to what actually happened to Crystal is her old boyfriend, Brooks Houck. He was her boyfriend at the time, as I mentioned, and they have a child together. And police and the state have said that he is the one who killed Crystal. He also says that his other family members, they also say that his other family members, including his brother, who is a former Bardstown police officer, as you saw in my story, and their mother, Rosemary Houck, have information too. Here's my next story on the Houcks. Bardstown, Kentucky, known for its small town charm.
The most gorgeous small town in America.
Rich history.
Happy Bourbon Festival!
And for being the bourbon capital of the world. But over the years, this small town has become synonymous with unsolved murders.
This has been a dark cloud over our community.
Conspiracy.
We're just trying to find her.
And heartache.
It's been a nightmare.
On July 5th, 2015, Sherry Ballard reported her daughter, 35-year-old Crystal Rogers, missing after she vanished 2 days earlier. The same day, a missing persons report was filed. Rogers' car was found abandoned with a flat tire on the Bluegrass Parkway in Bardstown. Her keys, phone, and purse were still inside her Chevy Impala. Crystal, a mother of 5, was last seen by her boyfriend, Brooks Houck.
They went out and they came home and he went to bed, and supposedly she stayed up on her phone.
At first.
And I want everyone to know that he has been completely cooperative with our investigation and has tried to assist us in any way that he can.
Brooks Houck appeared to be helpful. While police searched the home he and Crystal shared with their 2.5-year-old son and Rogers' 4 other children. Brooks even took a lie detector test, but police told us the results were inconclusive.
Now, I'm a single parent, it appears to me.
This is video from July 8th when the Nelson County Sheriff's Office brought in Brooks Houck for questioning.
I'm innocent, I ain't done nothing wrong.
Nick Houck, Brooks' brother and a Bardstown police officer, called mid-interview and told his brother to stop talking to police.
I know you told me innocent people have got jammed up, but if you're telling me to leave, I'll get up and leave.
July 9th, Houck appeared on Nancy Grace.
I'm 100% completely innocent in this.
Crystal's family just wanted answers.
He says he's 100% innocent, and maybe he is. Hopefully he is. Hopefully he hasn't done anything.
But doubts from Crystal's family surfaced early.
I specifically told him that day, I think you did something to my daughter. I made that very clear.
After countless searches.
Searched from Willisburg to Elizabethtown. We searched a lot of surrounding counties.
They came up with nothing.
Everybody says, keep your faith. I have a lot of faith, but each day goes by, you kind of lose just a little bit of that.
She has vanished from Earth, and I think it's safe to say that she's dead.
I kind of feel the same way.
You do.
I mean, I've got that hope that I'll find her alive.
She still might be out there somewhere. But I know if she was out there, she would call.
Then, in October of 2015, 3 months after Crystal was last seen.
I would label Brooks Houck a suspect, yes.
What about Nick?
He has knowledge of what has happened.
But Brooks wasn't arrested, at least not yet.
To talk to us about your brother's suspension.
No comment.
Nick was fired from the department the same day his brother was named the main suspect in Crystal's disappearance. Police said that Nick wasn't cooperating during the investigation. This is the moment they told him he failed a lie detector test.
Questions you're having a problem with are questions about Crystal. And in particular, the one about whether or not you know where she is right now.
I've been 100% honest with you, and so with God, you can understand with people showing up at my house and my family out there taking cars. The neighbors are watching. Man, it's been screwed up.
Nick has never been charged with the crime, but during Steve Lawson's trial,
Bombshell jailhouse calls, dispute over investigative practices, and unindicted co-conspirators.
prosecutor Shane Young revealed Nick and Rosemary Houck are still under investigation and considered co-conspirators in Crystal's case. Rosemary is Nick and Brooks' mother. She owns the family farm. Neither Rosemary nor Nick have been charged in Crystal's case.
We come out every day, hoping we'll find something.
Then, a year and a half after Crystal disappeared,
We need closure.
in November of 2016, Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, who had been investigating his daughter's disappearance, was shot and killed while hunting with his grandson on family property. The unthinkable happened to the husband and wife who were inseparable.
You know, my husband helped me get through this, and I don't have him here now to do that, so it's harder.
Somebody had to see her car on the DG that night.
Tommy spent the last 16 months of his life trying to figure out what happened to his daughter. Police initially called Tommy's death a hunting accident. The FBI has since ruled it a homicide. Searches happened off and on over the years. Then a significant break in the 8-year investigation into Crystal's disappearance. In September of 2023, Joseph Lawson is arraigned in court for conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence in relation to Crystal's case. Then days later,
This is a giant step in the answer about what happened to Crystal Rogers.
Brooks Houck is indicted for murder and tampering with evidence. He's arrested September 27th.
Where's Crystal Rogers?
Houck is charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence. In court appearance that followed, we learned prosecutors believe that they had the firearm that was used to murder Tommy Ballard.
A firearm that we purchased from Nicholas Houck.
They say an undercover agent bought it from Nick Houck, who was using a fake name. Joseph Lawson and Brooks Houck have been in jail ever since, waiting for their trial. The Ballards have also been waiting.
They were two good human beings, and they didn't deserve what they got.
Waiting for answers for what happened to Crystal and what will happen to Joseph Lawson and Brooks Houck.
He deserves where he's at. He needs to be there for the rest of his life. That's what I'm hoping for Brooks Houck.
It's important to know that Brooks Houck never got involved in searching for Crystal, which raised a lot of red flags with family. He has pleaded not guilty. Nick Houck and his mother are not currently charged in Crystal's case.
But of course called unindicted co-conspirators. And Myra, I want to point out that during the searches that happened over the years, authorities did discover items of interest related to this case, particularly in the subdivision where Brooks was building homes. You may remember they dug up some of that property. The FBI never told us what that evidence was. We're hoping to find that out during Brooks and Joseph's trial.
And speaking of Joseph, let's dig into him along with his dad, Steve. Our Brian Schlonsky has a look at who they are.
His name was the last one we learned when it came to the suspect list, yet it became the first name we heard attached to a guilty verdict. Stephen Lawson is the father of Joseph Lawson. Together, according to prosecutors, they make up two of the three pieces in the decade-long puzzle of who killed Crystal Rogers.
It's like a cloud that hangs over Bardstown. We want it to go away.
When the Lawsons were named as suspects, the big question from the people following this case was, who are they? And how are they connected to Crystal? The puzzle pieces finally starting to fit together in September of 2023. 8 years after the Bardstown mother was first reported missing. Brooks Houck, Rogers' boyfriend at the time she went missing, had long been a name circulated and whispered about when it came to her disappearance in July of 2015.
The behind the scenes kind of conversation is always, what do you think? Who do you think did this? And the opinion has always been they thought the boyfriend did it.
But in August of 2023, it was a man named Joseph Lawson who was arrested first in Nelson County, then arraigned via Zoom while sitting in a hospital. The Bardstown community reacting to the surprising arrest, not of the man they'd suspected for so long, but of this mystery man.
Well, I'm hoping that maybe he'll give them more information on who might have helped do this or whatever is going on with it. I'm happy for her that maybe she's going to get some closure here with all this coming about, you know. And like I said, we're all fighting for him and hoping the best for him.
Sifting through court documents, Joseph Lawson appears to have no direct ties to Houck or Rogers, but he does have a history of being arrested. The Nelson County Gazette covers the area. They posted this mugshot of him in 2020, arrested for, among other things, assault, strangulation, and unlawful imprisonment. 2021, another mug, another arrest. And once Joseph Lawson was arrested, we wouldn't have to wait long for the other dominoes to fall. Brooks Houck was arrested about a month later in September of 2023.
I specifically told him that day, I think you did something to my daughter. I made that very clear.
In December of 2023, Joseph Lawson's father, Stephen, is taken into custody.
I'm sure everybody feels the same way I do. They want this case solved.
It wasn't just people following the case who were curious how this father-son duo was connected to Crystal. That's what police wanted to know too. So they asked Brooks Houck directly.
Who is Steve Lawson? He's somebody that works for me.
So while Joseph has no obvious connections, Houck is on camera admitting that he's connected to Stephen. During that police interview, Houck calls Lawson and puts him on speakerphone so the detective can hear his explanation of where he was around the time Crystal was last seen.
The other night you called me really late, and I forgot what you asked me. Can you, I guess we wasn't on the phone. I might have been tired. I know it was pretty late at night. Can you remember what you asked me or what you were after? I can't remember.
Yes, sir, I can. I called and asked you for them numbers for a house.
Oh, for a rental house.
You told me that you would call, what's her name, Katie or whatever she handles all that.
Crystal.
Grand jury testimony from 2023 reveals Stephen Lawson said Brooks Houck told him that he wanted his girlfriend gone. Lawson also testified that he drove his son Joseph to pick up Crystal's car and then picked him up from the side of the Bluegrass Parkway in the early morning hours of July 4th, 2015, a subject that would come up again during his trial 2 years later.
Where's Crystal Rogers?
After the arrests, the waiting game for this entire case to go to trial. Fast forward to this spring, Stephen Lawson tried first in a separate trial away from his son and Houck. The reason? A judge found his testimony wildly inconsistent with the potential for prejudice. No cameras were allowed in court, so drawings from a sketch artist tell the story. In a stunning move, Lawson takes the stand in his own defense, admitting the exact way he's tied to Crystal Rogers, again discussing her car, his son, and his ties to Houck. Our reporter was there in the courtroom.
In that testimony, Lawson admitting to helping his son, Joseph Lawson, move Rogers' car the night she was last seen alive. His actions coming at the request of Rogers' then-boyfriend, Brooks Houck, who was also Lawson's employer.
A jury found Stephen Lawson guilty of all charges he'd faced, including conspiracy to commit murder, and recommended a 17-year prison sentence. It sets the stage for trial number 2, and the question, will his son Joseph or Brooks Houck take the stand as Stephen did? And as the puzzle comes together, will one of the pieces finally lead us to the mystery that still haunts the town? Where is Crystal's body?
And Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson, they are currently in Warren County. They're waiting for their trials to start. So, Alina, what are we expecting for Joseph and Brooks' trial?
I want to first start off saying that it's going to be a longer trial. We can't expect it to go 4 days like Stephen Lawson's. And that's going to be because of just how many players are involved with this. Now that we have two co-defendants, both on trial here, we also have two sets of attorneys. They're going to be able to ask their own questions of all the witnesses on cross-examination and on recross, which can already take a while when you have one defense attorney. Obviously, we don't know the full case the prosecution's going to put up. They have a bit more to prove when it comes to two co-defendants alleging kind of two different roles here versus Stephen Lawson as one. And so we expect probably more witnesses in addition to some of the ones we've already heard from. It's going to be a bit hard to tell until things get underway exactly how much we expect them to bring up. Obviously, a lot more pieces here when it comes to Brooks Houck and the allegations against him, specifically once the FBI got involved. We don't really know too much about what their role is aside from those searches that we saw happen over the last 5 years. So it's going to be a bit hard to tell. Obviously, we've got police interviews as well with Brooks Houck and investigators around the same time that Crystal Rogers disappeared. So that's going to be something that we should expect to hear from, plus other players like Nick and Rosemary Houck as a possibility, obviously, here when we're talking about so many things being brought up against them, them being part of so many conversations. You know, it'll be interesting to see if they're called to the stand for anything during this.
All right. So when it comes to charges, there's really just one word that makes things different for Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson's: conspiracy versus complicity.
Yes.
Break that down for us.
So conspiracy is talking about a plan. They are alleging that Joseph Lawson, who is charged with conspiracy to commit murder, was a part of some plan in this murder. Whereas complicity kind of is the same thing, a plan, but participation, saying that you went a step further in that you participated in the murders. That's really the distinction here. It also carries more of a penalty. It's a difference in the kind of class of felony in this case. Obviously, in Kentucky, you have different levels of murder. And so they don't rise to the level of just murder. It's complicity to murder, meaning you participated in it in some way. So clearly, prosecutors here are going to try to prove that Brooks Houck had something to do with the murder specifically. And obviously, there's a lot of questions when it comes to that. How exactly are they going to do that?
Okay.
That's something that the defense attorneys tried to bring up during Steve Lawson's trial, especially there at the end, asking the question, what happened to Crystal Rogers? How are they going to be able to do that if there's no body? That's the big question.
That is
here.
the big thing. And I think for a lot of folks who have been following this case, it is just frustrating that we don't know what exactly happened to Crystal, where her body is, how did she die. That's what's just broken Sherry Ballard, not being able to put her daughter to rest.
Absolutely. And, you know, in all the searches that have happened, obviously every single one of them looking for some evidence of Crystal Rogers. That's going to be the thing. We don't know. Based off of all the searches and nothing coming of it that we've heard of specifically related to have they found Crystal Rogers. I mean, it's doubtful that they have anything to indicate that necessarily. But then again, the prosecution has not said anything about the Brooks Houck case or really the Joseph Lawson case. Steve Lawson, only because of testimonies he's made in grand jury testimony, has details about his case been made public before trial, but they have been, lips are sealed when it comes to Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson. So it's going to be interesting to see what they actually have. I think there's a lot of questions. Obviously, the big one being, where is Crystal Rogers? But just in general, what case do they have? And the prosecution has been keeping that very close to their chest, and it's understandable why they would.
Yeah, because we don't even know what the FBI uncovered from that subdivision when they were digging out there. We don't know. They searched so many places over all the years, and we just don't know what they have. We're just hoping that this trial would lead to some clues.
Absolutely. And, you know, Leland Holbert, our legal analyst, he says, and any prosecutor or defense attorney would tell you this, if you're bringing an indictment, they believe they have something, especially in a case like this. So it's going to be interesting to see what exactly that something is. But Leland also says that when it comes to the defense, that idea of there is no body, he believes that both attorneys, both defense teams are going to have to take that beyond in their defense. You can't just point that out because the jury they're not dumb. You know, jurors are not dumb. They
No.
put two and two together. They're like anybody else when they're observing a trial like this. So they are going to recognize that clearly something happened to this woman. You know, the question is, what do they believe that was? And do they believe the prosecution proves that it was something nefarious, that it was indeed a murder? And so that's going to be the question that jurors are going to have to consider and weigh the evidence to decide whether or not it rises to that level.
And Sherry has always maintained that once we find out what happened to Crystal, we will get answers as to what happened in Tommy's case, which is a homicide investigation. So she's hoping for that, to not have the answers about what happened to your daughter and what happened to your husband. Is beyond what any of us can probably imagine.
I mean, heartbreaking. And to listen to them in the courtroom just with Steve Lawson's conviction, it's just bone chilling, to be honest.
Yeah.
The kind of reactions. I mean, they had to keep it quiet because the judge obviously wants to keep a decorum in the courtroom. So they, you know, any outcries were, you know, strictly prohibited. But, you know, you can hear the tears coming
Sure.
from people, you know. I mean, to have that first step towards some kind of closure, obviously nowhere near what Sherry Ballard probably needs in this case. But, you know, this is just another step in that. And still wanting answers, obviously, to Tommy Ballard. We haven't had anything in several years on Tommy Ballard's
Nothing
case.
on that. And, you know, Sherry was very quick to say that this was no hunting accident. There was definitely foul play. She had her suspicions. It wasn't random, you know. And Till Ballard, Tommy's father, had said he was digging into Crystal's investigation nonstop. And he was close to finding something out. And that's why they think that his life was taken.
I mean,
as
as
well.
any dad would, you know, in a case like this, you just don't give up on
Absolutely.
something like that. And obviously, it's not just Till Ballard and Sherry Ballard who believe something happened to Tommy. It's investigators too. They are investigating this, like you said, as a homicide case and definitely pursuing that in that way. And you got to wonder, you know, with so many pieces to this and so many players in this, that they potentially, you know, are just withholding at this point in time on what they may have on Tommy Ballard.
Yeah.
And
you know, as we mentioned, that no cameras are allowed in the courtroom. And I actually called Sherry after, you know, they made that decision. And she said, you know what, I'm okay with it. As whatever gets us a conviction, whatever gets us answers, whatever gets us justice, we will play by the rules. We want some answers. And they did not want to jeopardize anything.
No, it's understandable. You know, she's put this case out in the forefront of the public eye for so many years. And it's understandable where she would, you know, you're going to push. But the ultimate goal is to get the people who you believe responsible in front of a jury. And when it comes down to that, if the judge says, we believe this is going to jeopardize something, I'm going to go along with it, you know? And I think that it's understandable where she would, and she wouldn't just be like, well, we need them there, you know, like she's going to do what she needs to do to get justice in this case.
Yeah.
So again, the same rule applies in this next trial. No cameras in the courtroom. Like you said before, we're going to have a sketch artist and us diligently writing our hands off, taking all the notes possible to give you the best information coming out of the courtroom.
Absolutely. When you were in the courtroom, I'm sure that there were so many family members of Sherry Ballard's there, and also Tommy's family. Were they packed in the courtroom?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we had at least 4 rows worth of people who were just on the side of Crystal Rogers. Not too many people. With Stephen Lawson, I couldn't find any, at least, that seemed to be supporters that were there for him necessarily. That could definitely change in this next trial.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. But there were definitely supporters. Obviously, one thing that Steve Lawson, in his now trying to get his conviction thrown out and granted a new trial, is the idea that there was some level of prejudice in the courtroom with the victim's family, and that they were all wearing pink for the duration of the trial.
Yes.
So that's kind of how you could tell. But you know, you got to think it's a jury in Warren County. Do they know that signifies Crystal Rogers? I mean, again, they're not dumb. They could put 2 and 2 together. But when you're, you know, at the end of the day, you expect victims' families to be there. So it's going to be up to a judge to decide, did the color pink really impact a jury's perception of the victim and what they applied from that to Stephen Lawson and his guilt.
All right, so we covered a lot of ground, Alina. You're going to be in the courtroom along with our sketch artists, and you're going to have our producers there with you, so we can bring you the very latest, as she mentioned. So to follow along with the trial, just visit wave3.com on air and online for continuing coverage. I'm Myra Ansari with Alina Noakes. Have a great day.